episode of Surviving the Survivor, we bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation, and welcome to Surviving the Survivor. It is the podcast that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime, covering trending cases like this developing story that I hope has a good ending, but is not looking that way right now. Of course, we're talking about the 20-year-old University of Pittsburgh student, Sudiksha Konanki. She went missing she arrived in the Dominican Republic on March 3rd, and I believe went missing on March 6th as we go through this timeline. So it's been almost a week. Tomorrow will be a week. And here to break down the best guests, as always, got Rob D'Amico. Rob is retired military and also retired FBI. I don't know if that's me, but that's Rob D'Amico. And not only is he retired, but he also was part of the HRT team, hostage rescue. So this is the kind of job that Rob would do. He'd go in and try to see what's happening. He did it with the people holding some Somali pirates hostage, and went and captured those pirates. So got the right guy for this one. And then you've got retired military and retired FBI. His parents met in Vietnam and had little baby Jeff. Jeff handled drugs, narcotics in the Boston office of the FBI. Special Agent Jeff Wood. And he, too, coming to us from a hotel room. Jeff, if you don't know, he works closely with Dr. Ann Burgess, and he's helping her teach the living legend, Ann Burgess. And then new to the show, first time, and happy to have him here, Bart Womack. He is a command sergeant major, retired. He served in the United States Army with distinction for over 29 years. He was a professional soldier, a combat veteran, 2 Bronze Stars, 1 for valor, and he has a screenplay and I believe a documentary called Embedded Enemy. Bart, I'm going to have you unmute and tell me what is Embedded Enemy. It sounds interesting.
Yes, Embedded Enemy is a true story of the March 23rd, 2003 insider threat terrorist attack by a fellow American soldier. So we were in Kuwait, getting ready to cross the border into Iraq when this attack was launched.
Yeah. Rob, there's something funky happening with your audio. I'm going to pop you out and see if the COE can help fix that. But so Bart, I got to ask, I think you told me that you're from Columbus, Ohio originally, but you're in Pittsburgh, PA right now. That, of course, is the home of the University of Pittsburgh, which is, of course, the collegiate home of Sudiksha Konanki, this young 20-year-old student who went missing. What is the news coverage like in the city of Pittsburgh? Are people interested in this? Are they tuning in? Are they talking about it, around the proverbial water cooler or at Starbucks?
Yeah, they are talking about it in the places I've been out to, gyms, etc. You can't help but talk about it. You see people with their pit gear on and everything. So it's much talked about. It seems very familiar in terms of spring break, where you never expected to hit home, but it has this time.
Yeah. And she is originally from the DMV, the Washington, D.C. area. Rob D'Amico, this is your wheelhouse here. We went away over the holidays, and personal story, Rob D'Amico said, make sure your kids have Apple AirTags. I'm tracking them, which he did. My kids thought it was like the coolest thing. My wife and I were a little scared, but Rob makes sure people are safe, especially in places outside of the United States. So Rob, when you heard this story, what was your initial reaction to it? And you got to be one of those guys, I know you, that's kind of jonesing to get out to look for her and find out what happened. So tell me how you're feeling almost a week into this.
Yeah, when I first heard of it, I thought of all the things that we talked about. I had 3 of my kids in Europe last summer, bought a whole bunch of AirTags for them, their equipment and stuff. But as I look more into the story, I'm not sure like an air tag would have, helped in this. She went out to a beach. Don't know if she would have kept it on her at that point, or if she was in the water, if he even do any good. It's one of those things. It's situational awareness, but it's also spring break. You got young kids. They're drinking. And then you have the ocean, which we used to call in the Marines the big hungry, because if the ocean wants you, it takes you. Like there's no way. I've been on some ops doing some combat diving stuff, and the currents are just unbelievable. The house in North Carolina where I have a house at, I think nine people drowned last summer because of the riptides, and people come down and they're not familiar with them. So when you're dealing with the ocean, it's one of those things that you can tell them all you want to be careful, but like they're young and they're doing their thing and they're drinking and their judgment's down. And then you have the ocean on top of it. So I don't even know if like all the safety things I talk about, except for understanding the conditions around you, would help in this one, because I think it's one of those things that's going to be a tragic ending to something that they're out and just trying to have a good time and got mixed up in the ocean and it took her.
Yeah. And Rob, let me just follow up with that. I mean, one of the issues is that typically, and I don't want to get morbid here, but typically a body will wash up on shore. It hasn't happened. What's your take on that?
So the ocean does amazing things. It's one of those that you can never actually recreate what's happening with the currents in the ocean at any one time. The moon, the weather, the tides, the timing that is ebbing and flowing. You cannot recreate what the ocean's going to do with things that are in it. You would think, oh yeah, it's going to turn up here because we lost something last week and it ended up floating down here. But it's one of those things like, my wife got on a capsized sailboat years and years ago before we were even together. And everyone thought it was going to be like the tides were going to take it down one way, and it literally went like 60 miles the other way. And it's one of those things that you just cannot capture what an ocean is going to do. So everyone says like, oh, her body would be found by now. That's not, I don't think that's given in the case where you're dealing with an ocean, especially with, they were saying how rough it was and how things were happening, but you can't, again, like we talk about the ebb and flow, what time of the day it was and what's happening. And then was there any tidal issues? Like when you have a full moon, the tides in the undercoat are a lot stronger. So to recreate that's really tough. So they say that, but I mean, you still don't want to give up on any of the other things that you're doing. I'd still be grilling this guy that was with her. Like the story's changed. It's up. I'm going to be, like I always said, that like I'd probably use a power washer on somebody if one of my kids was missing to really figure it out. Because power washers really hurt when they take your skin off. But you can't give up on him because he's the last one that was with her. His story's changed a little bit, but again, he's a drunk college kid. And you also don't want to give up on the search. You don't want to give up on, could have been someone outside of him that did something to her when he was passed out. You don't want to give up on those. And the parents are always going to focus on like the positive. Like there has to be something that's not horrific until they find her.
Yeah. COE, by the way, great job getting this together. I don't know if we have the surveillance. There's some surveillance video, some grainy foot. Oh, I do see it. I see it. So this is Jeff Wood. This is the last bit of this is from a media outlet in Punta Cana, the Dominican Republic. And you see this group of friends. Now she's down there with 5 girlfriends. She might be the 5th. I think it's 5 others though. And this is the guy she reportedly meets. We're going to get to him in a minute, and I'm going to bounce that off for right now and bring these guys back. But Jeff Wood, a comment that I've seen like 5 times already in the chat is shades of Natalie Holloway. That's what a lot of people initially are thinking, because you had this, blonde college age student goes down to Aruba, and we know the end of that story with that psychopath Jorn van der Sloot. Did you have the same sort of initial reaction in hearing this? Because anytime you hear a college kid and you hear missing on a Caribbean island, that generally seems to be the case. And then this video popped up that I just showed, which we'll play again, showing that she had met somebody. She's holding hands with this guy.
As a law enforcement officer, my thought is always going to go to foul play, right? But as Rob said, when you start seeing things and everything, you have to be open to every possibility. So when you look at the video, especially once they show her going towards the beach, the first video showed she's walking towards, and if you keep watching it, they get to the point where they're now past that screen, they're walking towards the beach. And you can see her stumbling, you can see him stumbling, all the friends. So they're clearly drunk. They're young kids, spring break. We've all been there. We've all had too much to drink when we're young. Again, as Rob said, I'm interrogating that kid until I am fully satisfied that he had nothing to do with it. I'm going to keep my mind open just in case somebody, because the family's saying it, and you got to be able to show the family that you've exhausted every possible lead, where you go and say, yeah, maybe she could have been kidnapped by someone. But again, if they both went in the water, it's rough, they're drunk, they were stumbling a little bit on a sidewalk. Now you're in the sand and the water, that makes it even harder. And he said he got knocked down, went back to the beach, threw up, passed out. You have to start also looking at, did she fall through the wave and get sucked out to a riptide? Everyone keeps saying, and again, I know what everyone says, she would have washed back up somewhere. That's if she wasn't eaten by a shark, if that's what happened. But I think, as Rob said, this is a thing where you tell the friends when you're together, you do not leave. Like, you see the friends and the other guy. There's two girls, another guy, her, the guy she's with. The girls and the guy leave the two alone. I mean, that's safety 101. If you're going out with your friends, you stick together till you get home. Do not leave. They violated that rule right there. I mean, this is just so sad, because I feel so bad for the parents, because anyone who's a parent knows that the worst thing that could happen is to lose a child before you pass what you expect to outlive your child. And right now it's looking like my child may be dead and I'm still here. I can't imagine how they're feeling.
Yeah, I don't even want to think about that, because it's a torturous thought, having 3 kids myself, and Rob's got 4, and Jeff, you, and I'm not sure about Bart, but didn't they find her clothes? Yeah. You have kids, Bart?
2 sons, yes.
Very nice. So Diana here, they did find some clothing that she had left behind on the beach, which is one reason I think that led them to believe that maybe she went into the ocean, into the Caribbean there. But she also kind of left her cell phone back, and we're going to talk to the investigators about what that could mean. But Bart, to you, like, one of your sort of areas of expertise is situational awareness. Now, you're generally looking for real bad guys. ABC News on Tuesday, 2 police sources told ABC that Konanki's clothes were found on a portable beach bed close to where she disappeared. Okay, so you've got that. But
cover up, though. I don't think it was
like
all
it was like the sarong, right? Like
yeah.
For some reason I know that word. I don't know why.
I was going to say, like, you're the fashion guy knowing that word.
I have no idea why. I think I read about it, and that's why I know the word. I was reading this story, and that's why it popped into my head. But Bart, back to you. So, and Rob's going to do this too, but a lot of us in this community have kids, and thankfully mine are not college age yet, but I'm still going to give them a lecture when I go home, even though one is only 5, but you still get the lecture. I mean, what do you tell your children? You've got the University of Pittsburgh, probably a stone's throw from where you're sitting. What would you tell these kids who are going away on spring break in terms of being careful and being situationally aware?
Yeah, right off the bat is, there's a playbook on there. So there's movies about it, and there's true stories about it, and many documentaries about it, which aren't fiction. And the whole, of course, we've been in the military, so we would say buddy team. They don't know nothing about that, but you have to be with someone. more importantly, if you know where they're going and you have a group going with you, then you can't be apart. Someone has to be with them at all times. And going to these Caribbean countries, it should be at least 3 people. So when I hear about this particular story here, I don't understand why those other girls left her by themselves. How long did they know this guy? And I know that they've heard of situations where a girl has gone missing when something like that has happened. So Rob talked in detail about the water, which is true if in fact she was in the water. And like he said, spray hosing that guy that is the only witness or the last person to have seen her. I don't know how much these girls know about him. Not much is being talked about him aside from he was the last one to see her. And I don't know, from a forensic standpoint, have they verified that he was actually in the water, or is that just a story? But back to the original question, it is, I think the adults at an academic institution should play adult and act like these are their children more so than their students in a situation like this for spring break, and talk about different ways of being safe on their journeys on spring break.
Well said there. Rob D'Amico. So the guy she's holding hands with is apparently someone she just meets down there. They're staying at a very nice hotel. It's a 5-star resort called the Rue Republica. Rue is a big chain of hotels on the higher end in the Caribbean. So they're staying there. Again, they arrive on March 3rd. On March 5th, the night before her disappearance, they are at a disco, according to reports, with friends. And that's that night, the night before, because I guess it goes into the morning hours. That's where they capture this surveillance video that you're looking at on the right side and in the middle shot. And this is, and his name is plastered everywhere. And I'm not sure how I personally feel about it. However, Rob, police, again, his name is Joshua Ribe, if I'm pronouncing the last name correctly, 24 years old from Iowa. But what police did do today, I believe, is name him a person of interest. So, Rob D'Amico, what does, you hear that on TV shows, and by the way, my friend Phil Waters, who's investigated 400 homicides, he hates that term. He's like, you're a suspect or you're not a suspect. So what does this mean?
Yeah, I don't like that term either. So I think they have to keep him as a suspect because, again, he was the last one seen with her. His story did change 3 times, and there's significant changes though. The one, like he says that he was in the water, he got sick, and he was gonna get out, and he saw her in like knee deep water. And then the next one was like he got out and got sick on the beach, but he saw her. And then the last one, like he got out of the water and he saw her walking down the beach. So all of them are somewhat significantly different for those last moments. But, I'm not going to lie. I've been on spring break and I think I did fall asleep on the beach one time. And I'm not sure I could put everything together in this, story. Plus he's scared. Like, if he did it or if he didn't do it, he's still scared to a point. So you're going to just have to keep going over with him on the story, see where there's changes and things. I think it's significant. He came back 4 hours or about 3 to 4 hours later without her, and they have him walking in. He doesn't have his shoes. He doesn't have his shirt. Did they find those? Where were those located? Or if they haven't found them, did they get washed out to the beach? Did they find them in the water anywhere? And this keep grilling him to a point. I think maybe even looking at his phone, because he had his phone. She didn't. We'll talk about that in a minute. But he was filming himself. You could tell he was doing like a self either video or a selfie when they were walking down towards the beach. So he had his phone with them. Can they look at the cell records to see if he left that area? Because if they're saying that maybe he did something to her and didn't put her in the water, because again, if she drowned on her own, or if she drowned by him, everyone's saying, oh, the body should turn up. Her body being in the water is the same if he did it or didn't do it. So if they're saying that, well, we can't find the body, does his phone move from that beach? Do they have enough electronic technology to really determine if that phone moved from the beach, or if it died, it could have died, and then they're a little bit out, but phones still communicate with the towers to figure that out. So I think they're going to start looking through all this and keep quizzing him, keep interrogating him, suspect or not. I think he just has to be a suspect because he's the last one.
Yeah. Jeff Wood, to you. By the way, D'Amico, have you ever actually used a power washer on somebody? You can tell me.
No, I did it to myself. So I was power washing something, and it went across my hand. And when you cut yourself with something sharp, you don't feel it for a while. I felt this instantly, and it sliced my hand open, and it self-cauterized it. So it didn't bleed, but I could look into my hand and see the ligament, and it hurt so bad, but it didn't bleed. It's like self-cauterized. So I always thought, like, hey, if one of my kids is missing and there's a suspect, I may have to, take the power washer and, ask them some questions. I always tell my kids that you've seen that movie Taken, right? Like, I'm like, that'd be me, but I'd be a lot more violent. So
be careful. Get it in their face, because at the end of the day, you want them to talk. They won't be able to talk if you do that. Wow.
Well, I mean, you got to keep it on the limbs and stuff, so you can't, and I may have some things to resuscitate him too if he passes out.
COE, if the girls are home and I don't know what's going on because I'm now a couple thousand miles away, please force them to watch this. And I'm trying to make them watch this, even though they're a little young for it, but it's never too early. So Jeff Wood, to you, Rob's talking about these inconsistencies in statements. I mean, look, we were all at some point in our early 20s. I remember I went to Jamaica with a friend. I even remember his name. Shout out to Mike Sullivan. I used to work with him at MSNBC way before I knew the COE. And I remember we were by the pool at 3-4 in the morning or whatever. So people do, college things when they're going away on spring break for college stuff. But this guy's, and we'll get to the inconsistencies, what they are specifically, but in terms of sort of questioning him, what is the protocol now? And you also have multiple jurisdictions I want to get to, including Interpol that's involved. But right now, I presume this guy is not allowed to leave the island. I mean, what are they doing with him? I mean, he's not being held in jail. So what is happening right now?
Well, I mean, as they said, they use that term, which I hate. I got to agree. I just hate the term person of interest. What does that mean? And in my mind right now, he's a suspect. Doesn't mean he's guilty. I suspect him because it's a suspicion. Last person to see with him. And I'm going to just keep drilling him. I want answers. I want to know why his story is changing. Now, could it be because he's so drunk he's not remembering right? Who knows? But this is where you come in with your interview, your interrogation, and you just keep drilling down and you look for those inconsistencies and you exploit those inconsistencies, right? The biggest issue here, though, is that he's drunk, right? If you've got somebody who's not drunk and they have inconsistencies, you can really start working around the interview because you can see where his lack of details come into play. And with those inconsistencies, you can exploit them if he's willing to talk. The problem here, too, is one, what are the rules that Interpol will play with? What are the rules that the DR has? Here in the United States, you got to read them the rights if they feel detained. And so after if I'm just talking to you and you feel like you can walk away tomorrow, you're not detained. But if they're still talking to him now in several days, he's going to think he's detained. And I can guarantee you, I remember when I was in Afghanistan, I'm talking to somebody, I read them their rights because my thought was, if I can extradite you back to the States, I don't want a defense attorney saying you never read them the rights. You violated their constitutional rights. And he's an American, so I guarantee you, if the FBI or local state law enforcement get involved, I'd be reading his rights just to make sure. So that way, if he's guilty of something and we can prove it, his confession, his words can be used against him. And it's really odd that you think that. But should it matter? He's not in the United States. It's not going to matter when you get back to the States. The defense attorneys are going to go after you for it. So
I mean, it's perfect. We read the pirate, and we had it in 5 languages just in case. And every time we talked to him, we reread them and he reinitialed them. At one point he finally said, he goes, do you think I need a lawyer? And I said, he waived them because we already had the stuff. So we didn't want to risk anything after that. And then he tried to unwaive them and that took 20 attempts. So it really comes down to hey, I can read some of the rights and I can still, and this guy, we always talk about making connection with the person you're interrogating. And, sometimes it can be hard. If you're talking to a serial killer, when you look at those shows about the ones back then, really getting, empathy with them can be tough. Where do you go with that? But this guy, I can naturally go in dude, I was there. I was at spring break. I was hammered. I fell asleep on the beach, but I'm still going to use it to get him to confess if he did it. I'm still going to use that against him after I read him his rights. So, but I can go down with him and say, dude, I get it. I've been there. You got to tell me what you want, your story and stuff. We got to get it. But yeah, if you don't read him the rights and because I think they're saying that they're watching him in his room, but he's not detained, but they're still around him. So I would just say, hey, he's detained. Let me read him his rights, get in there. Hey, I'm a fellow American. I've been in your place. Let's talk.
Delana here. And by the way, I would always defer to Vesper Martini. She's in the know. She's saying that he's been named a person of interest by the press, which is interesting, not by the police in the DR, which is, I guess not a surprise since the press thinks that they are right usually. And you got Delana here, and I have to add, who gets up the next day and goes on an excursion while not knowing where your friend is and not to report her missing until 12 hours later. I mean, this does have shades of Riley Strain. Bart, this is a lot of time, 12 hours to go by before she's reported. I mean, how problematic is that?
Yeah, I saw a day where I believe the FBI is coming over there or on their way over there, as well as the local law enforcement or the sheriff's department from where she's from there, the National Capital Region, because they're questioning the validity of this investigation. So it's starting to come apart, but now I think we're going to have experts on the ground to find out some pieces of this. So Rob was talking about, well, we've talked about how he's on watching his room or whatever. Even the move to put him in a cell and start questioning him there is a different move, because now it feels like it's real for him. Just talking, I'm still in the hotel room. It feels like I'm a suspect, but they're saying person of interest, so I guess that's all it is. But if he is in lockup and now they're questioning him, that's a different thing. And you're in a room in that police headquarters, it's a different thing, and different things will come out of your mouth. So we think we have 3 versions of the story now. You might get 4 or 5 if you get them in there.
I would say.
Go ahead, Jeff. No, go ahead.
I would say, one thing that we have to remember is when you look at the photo, when they're taking to me, it looked like they're taking a selfie video, right? Because he held that phone up for a while as they're walking. You can see him stumbling. They're both stumbling. We have to keep an open mind, because we don't want to rush to judgment and just convict this guy because he's the last person to see her, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we say, well, it was 12 hours. Again, we don't know everything, and that's why you do the interviews, the interrogations. You keep going until you're fully satisfied that you have the truth. Offer him a polygraph. You get. I know people don't necessarily like the polygraph. It's not the polygraph. It's the agent in doing the polygraph that matters. If you get the right person who does the right polygraph, that person is the one that's going to break the person and get what you need, not the machine.
Interesting.
So
Wow.
at the end of the day,
I've never heard that. That's really fascinating. Go ahead, Jeff.
I've worked with people. I know them. It's not the machine, it's the person. So at the end of the day, what if he's smashed? He's in the water, he passes out, wakes up. We've been there, right? I remember drinking one night. The next day I'm up, but I'm hazy for a few more hours. I go back to sleep until it's like 2:00 in the afternoon. Now I can start remembering things. But he's enough to say, I'm cold, right? Because you're on a beach that's sand. The sun is no longer up right away, and that sand gets cold. You wake up and you're like, I just want to get back to my room. And you're even forgetting, because you've had so much booze, you were with someone. So you don't see the clothes, you don't see her. You're like, she's not here. She went back to her room. I'm going back to my room. I'm not. These are the things that you have to think about and actually take into place, so that way you don't try and convict someone who's innocent, or at the same time, you don't forget everything. So if this is the right person, you have that in mind, but you're not rushing to judgment, and you're doing everything properly. You're doing it right, so that at the end of the day, in my mind, this kid at this age, especially with things we've seen in the past, you're stuck in your room. You're not going anywhere. He's probably still pretty nervous. I would be at that age. He's 20, 21 years old. If he's never done anything before, he's
24.
Or 24. But if he's never been involved with law enforcement before, and then you're overseas dealing with law enforcement where you don't have the same constitutional rights as you do here, a lot of countries, you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. People are they're going to be a little nervous. So, this is where, as Rob said earlier, get an American investigator in there so you speak the same language, start the interview. You do it right. You play on being American. You play on being, I'm a college student. I was a college student. I was where you were. I've done, it's the same thing with kids, right? Your kids never believe you. Oh, you're my parents. You've never done anything. You've probably done everything they've done, right? You've done it. You've been there, but they don't believe it until they're much older. That's what you start selling them on. We did, as Rob said, we had a case where I knew as soon as I showed up that this girl was a runaway. She committed suicide, and we had a couple people who kept honing in on the boy who lived next door to her, and they're like, we got a polygraph. They're treating him like he's guilty. He did everything, and I said, you're going after the wrong guy. And they're like, what do you mean? They fooled around. It's the first time in high school that these two kids probably fooled around. And you've got him where you've got two women talking to this 14-year-old. He's not going to say anything. Get a guy in there who can say, dude, congratulations for getting your first kiss or your first second base. Tell me what happened, right? We do that. He goes, yeah, we fooled around. I don't know what happened to her. She, you ended up, but we waste so much time when we start focusing on the wrong things. And so that's why this has to be done properly, and we'll get to the answers. It's just, we've got so much going on here that we're not seeing the forest through the trees right now, right?
Joel, that's the biggest thing is an investigator keeping an open mind for literally all the cases, not it's, I think that the folks in DR think she drowned, and I hope that doesn't cause them not to do certain things, because again, you just don't want to get focused on that one, because you can do parallel ones. That's why I always think profiling can be tough. Like when on the DC sniper case, the white guy in his 30s to 40s drive, and it was absolutely so wrong that all we did was focus on that, and it really took away from people looking at the other things. So I really think a mature investigator, the biggest thing they bring is, I'm in talking to him. I can see a story, but I'm still going to grill him, but I still realistically think there can be other possibilities. And I don't close my windows. I don't close my doors to allowing, when I find evidence, leading the evidence to point in the right direction of the investigation.
Yeah. Bart, hang on one sec. I'm sorry. The COE here. Joshua Ribe was also an all-around athlete in high school, making it to the Iowa State Championship for wrestling, and that is no small feat. I mean, Iowa lives, breathes, and eats. They are the capital of wrestling. So this guy,
I got to make a correction. Penn State has won the last 11 college championships. So Iowa State.
All right. Well, you're right. Well, you're. What's his name? There's a UFC fighter. I'm just blanking on his name right now, who's a Penn State guy. But Bart, didn't mean to cut you off there. Go ahead with your thought.
No, I apologize. I was going to just follow what Rob was saying in terms of grilling them. I think in the end, and that's just one path. I think you either rule something in or you rule something out, by doing that. Then we got this big old ocean out there, this big old body of water, which is perceived that that's where she may be, but you can't just give up on everything on the ground. That area in that country is they say is relatively safe. That's from the locals that are saying that, and that law enforcement. But there's a very, very nasty place not too far from there called Haiti, and what they do there is totally different. So I mean, we pray that there's no human trafficking going on here as well.
And that's another that's another great point. COE, just check on it because I hear that that Josh Ribe, this person in question, may have given some comments just a short time ago. If you want to take a quick look at that, but Rob D'Amico, I was coming back to you after Jeff Wood's explanation. So, and you kind of touched on it, but look, I'm in my 50s, and if you're questioning me in an interview room and you got a power washer, I'm folding, and I'm 50. This kid's 24. I mean, he's 24 years old.
Let me get it out there. Power washing is not an approved FBI, and I actually don't believe in enhanced interrogations, but unless it's my kid, then power washer's coming out.
They should have used them against Al Qaeda and stuff, but whatever happened. But anyway, Rob, so how do you toe the line between, you could pry a potentially false confession out of someone that's scared enough of you. So how careful do you have to be, I guess, to maintain your composure as an investigator, and also what you were saying, the possibility that there's other possibilities out there other than just this 24-year-old who I feel like in my gut, most people think he's probably like innocent in this, but we just don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those things when you go in and I think, a good interrogator is going to figure out when they're just telling you something that they think you want to hear at a point. We had that overseas, Iraq and Afghanistan. Some of those guys, they literally would just try to tell you what they thought you wanted to hear. And I would go back, and some of them, like when we found out it was a total lie and they were telling us they were like kind of guilty, and like, well, why'd you tell us that? And he'd be like, well, that's what I thought you wanted to hear. I'm like, and as you get more into these, if I really thought that he was just telling me that, like, I want the truth. That's what this investigation's about, is the truth. And you can't get caught up even with your ego saying, I got the confession out of him. Like, well, did you really? If he's confessing to something that he didn't do, that's not the truth. It's not fair to her family, and him. Like that's one of those things. So you really have to put your ego down. You go in and you talk to him. And if he did, confess to you, like kid, like I'm not just, that's not, I want to hear just because you think I want to hear it. Like, you got to tell me the truth. But I think a good investigator would kind of be able to, and Joe can talk about it. Like you kind of get that. Like, if you think they're just telling you to tell you from that. So that's one of those things, because the truth is what's ultimately coming out of it, is what you want out of this. And if he lies and gets convicted, even, that's still not the truth, because we don't have it. Could have been someone else, or innocent person, actually does time for it.
Yeah. If anyone knows, someone was hang on one sec, Jeff, but someone was asking if Sudiksha is an only child. If you know, let us know. Jeff, go ahead.
I was just going to add to Rob, because I've seen it, and I was involved in an investigation overseas where the Afghans obtained a false confession. I was in the room recovering an American body that was this guy had killed, and I could hear I couldn't understand the language because I don't speak Pashtun, but as they're asking the questions, they were tuning the guy, right? You could hear right, and they go, "This is what happened." As soon as they're done, this is what happened. And I looked at the evidence. I said, no, he's lying. And no one believed me. I spent months fighting the Afghan government, CIA, everyone else, until I finally sat down with him. And he told me the same thing until I said, no, you're lying. This is how I know. And he came back, and it's the same thing. It's you ask the wrong question. And if you're doing that, I don't agree with it. Just as Rob said, we're not out here to beat someone. We can get a confession from most people, right? But at the end of the day, it's how you ask the question. And if you're doing those harsh interrogation techniques, again, it's the same question. You have to ask it right. And for example, in this case, and this is what you can't do here with this person, they asked, because sources are telling us there were 4 terrorists who just conducted this attack, and we have 1 in there. And they're saying, where are the other terrorists? Where's the 3rd terrorist? So he goes, I want the beating to stop. There's 4 of us. There's 3 of us, right? And then when you come in and say, tell me the truth, and you show him, he's like, no, there were 3 of us trained to do this attack, but 1 died when we crossed the border from Pakistan into Afghanistan, and so only 2 of us attacked. But yeah, I've got this big broken nose, a black eye now, and I wanted that beating to stop. So these are the things that you have to do. And I've seen it happen in the States where you interrogate someone for 48 hours and they're exhausted and they're like, well, we'll let you go home if you just tell us what happened. And the guy goes, you know what? I just need to get some sleep. I'll fix this later. Yes, I murdered my daughter, and now he's arrested and spends 5 years in jail for a false confession. And you have to wait till the DA finally gets smart enough when the defense attorney goes, you have DNA, you're going to test that DNA, and it's not his, and it wasn't him in the first place, right? Those things have happened, and that's why it's so important to do these interviews, these interrogations properly with the right questions and not leading questions. You don't say, when did you kill her? You've got to ask it the right way to get the person to admit details that only he or she would know of what they did for the crime, right? If I go, why'd you shoot the guy? And if we know he was shot, but the guy doesn't, I shot him 5 times, right? Okay, but maybe he wasn't shot. You go, how did you kill him? Well, I stabbed him. Well, that's funny. He was actually shot. You're dealing with someone who's just giving a false confession. So that's why you have to be even careful with the questions you ask so you don't lead them to the answers you want. And so, again, I don't know what the investigators that are like that are talking to them. I don't, you just have to hope that they're doing the right job. And this kid, if he's guilty, he gives it up. If he's not guilty, he holds firm and is able to show, I'm not the person, and we don't know. We don't have any of the information provided us yet for any one of us in this country to say he's guilty of this crime right now. If it's a crime, it could be just a horrible accident. I used to do 4, 5, 6 mile open water swims in the ocean until I got hurt. I was training for some of these 20-mile ones. It's tough to swim in those currents. And if you're drunk, I don't care if you're a high school athlete went to for wrestling, you're not going to compete against that ocean, especially when
Jeff Wood, I sit in the jacuzzi. It gets too hot, I just put my feet in. So you and I are similar. We're similar a little bit. You found out here, Sudiksha has 2 younger siblings who are twins, so they've got to be devastated. Also, I can't handle these alpha males swimming 20 miles in the ocean. And I'm like, I just took a flight cross country. I need 6 weeks off now. To you, Bart, who's all shredded and ripped, already mentioned the gym, making me feel guilty here. There's a reported, I promised myself I'd go to the gym today, but I just think I'm too tired. I'll figure it out. Everyone's like, shut up, talk about the story. Don't talk about yourself. You're a narcissist. I am actually just looking at this now. I didn't see this earlier, but there was reports that there was a power outage at the hotel at the time that this all happened. For a guy that's an expert in sort of situational awareness, how could that factor in, or does it not at all?
Yeah, when I saw that, I thought about the it affecting the cameras, any cameras that they may have had, but obviously this footage shows what took place, and it didn't affect any of that. I don't think that it plays a role at all. because they went to the beach. I don't think there was anything that was on the beach that the electricity would have, in this particular case, I don't think it plays a role at all. The timing seems to be on point. They know when he came back, and they know when the girls came back. So I'm not sure it played a role at all.
Yeah, I think this is the implication right here from Lisa Cox, is that maybe there was just less the cameras were out, but it sounds like at that time that they were actually at the beach. But speaking of the time, Rob D'Amico, so tomorrow will be 1 week about her last known moments and then her disappearance. At 4 a.m., March 6th, she goes walking to the beach. And again, now I'm going to play this surveillance video here. This is her last known movements right here. We're about to play it.
Joe, can you hold on 1 second before you play?
Yeah.
The power came on. They restored the power about an hour before this video was taken. It was gone for 12 hours. It started the day before, whatever, and they worked on stop. And about an hour before this video was taken, they got it restored. Just FYI.
Oh, nice. Thank you for that info. I love it. So I'm going to play it while we look at it. But Rob D'Amico, 4 a.m., you can tell he's in that selfie pose, and two friends are obviously behind her. And you can see he's got his arm around her. And now they're going the other direction, or maybe the same direction from a different angle. That watermark is from the local Punta Cana media. So courtesy to them for getting this. And this looked like daylight, but then I realized this is probably maybe. But Rob, they go walking to the beach at 4 a.m. Surveillance video captures them. The rest of the group then reportedly returns to their rooms, leaving only she and this guy back behind, Konanki and Ribe, however we pronounce it. And 5:55 a.m., so that's now almost 2 hours later, this guy Ribe is seen leaving the beach alone without her. So somewhere between 4 a.m. and 5:59 a.m., when you see him walking alone, something happens. Again,
I thought the walking alone was at 9 a.m. when he comes back alone.
At 9 a.m., I have 5:55 a.m. on mine, but you might be right. And 9 a.m., I'm going to defer to you because you've been on TV talking about this.
Yeah, I read that in like two places, and it looks sunnier, but again, I think him saying he passed out, and then woke up and then walked back. Big thing, like without a shirt, without his shoes. Did they find those somewhere? Like, or did the ocean take those? What was his excuse for that? Was a big thing. I do think the power may, like they said, the parents said it was odd that she left her cell phone in the room. But if you're going to the beach knowing that you might go swimming, of course he brought one, but it also could be, how it's like 4 a.m. they had their phone and it was like the power was off and it's not charging. Her phone dies, so why bring it to the beach? So I think there's definitely some reasons that she would have not taken her phone with her, that it wasn't like kind of foul play. Plus she's walking with him. She's stumbling with him down the thing, not looking in distress, not like someone told her to leave her phone and she has to go somewhere with them. So I don't think the phone is a big a deal as again, the parents are just trying to get anything. They're grasping because they just don't want to believe that, she's not with them anymore.
Yeah. I think that's a big part. As much as I hate to say it, the parents, the father specifically asked for a wider investigation, and I would do the exact same thing, but sometimes it is just so hard. It's just so hard to accept that something could have happened to your child. But now to these sort of inconsistent statements. So they figure out that she's nowhere to be found, and they start speaking to this guy again from Iowa, who's a student in St. Cloud, Minnesota. At first, he says, and Rob, I'm going to start with you here again. First, he says he vomits from the rough surf, leaves the water, and then asks if Konanki was okay. And then the second statement, he says he feels sick. He leaves the water and sees her in knee-deep surf before passing out. Third statement, he sees Konanki walking along the shore before he passes out in the sand. So first statement, he vomits and he's asking if she's okay. Second time, he's literally saying that that he sees her before he passes out. And then the third one says that she's walking along the shoreline. So these, I mean, they're fairly different. What do you attribute it to?
I attribute it to him, like, again, well, I mean, if he did it, then obviously he's trying to get his story to the point where he's taken out of suspicion that last time he saw her, she was alive, and it excused him for, walking back alone. But I think, as Jeff said, I truly believe, like, you're out on a 6 a.m. bender, like you're getting hammered, and like you think you remember, I think I threw up in the water, or did I get out and throw up? And I know I saw her like in knee deep water. And then, like, I swear, like she walked home when I passed out. So all those go into it. Again, there's some differences in that, and you're going to have to really clarify that with them. And that's why I think it's really key to the interviewer with him, getting empathy and talking to him and saying, "Hey kid, look, I get it. Like, it's a confusing time. You're drunk, but we really got to figure this out." Because I think I can see all those, like, God, like, was I in the water when I threw up, or, was I on the beach? I remember getting sick because I swallowed some seawater, and then I passed out. I swear I saw her, and he's going to want to, like, in his mind, if he didn't do it, he wants her to be alive. He wants her to be walking down the beach. So that's one of those power for, things that you really want something to happen. You can kind of picture it in your mind, because that's what you want the truth to be. So they're going to go down those roads. That's why the key is sitting down with them and talking to them, and really, tell them, like, "Hey kid, I get it, but like, we need to figure this out. You got to tell me, or do you really remember this, or what do you really remember from this?" Like,
and don't forget, Rob, the first few interviews are done with people who English is probably not their first language. So you're doing translations. That may play a part. We don't know. Again, we don't know.
Exactly, Jeff. Those 3 statements came out right in the beginning before the FBI was down there. So they're coming from, cops who's not their first language is English. So, and again, how was the question asked? Like, how was that brokered, translation wise, to him, that they're asking?
So Rob, do we know when, I presume the FBI is there now. Let's say this is you're still active. By the way, if you're just joining us now, you've got 2 retired FBI agents, 3 guys, one a professional soldier, the other former military, 3 heroes, American heroes. You got to thank them for their service, and well experienced here. But Rob, if you're, you told us a story about, obviously, the Somali pirate situation where 4 Americans were taken hostage and ultimately they were murdered. But Rob got justice by getting these pirates back here, a bunch of them back here. And they're the lead guy serving, 500 years or whatever it is in prison. But Rob, when you land in Punta Cana, which is a short flight, what do you do? Where do you go? And how do you set up?
I think it's a team out of Miami who's like, there's a number of large FBI teams that have extraterritorial jurisdictions. Miami has obviously South America and the Caribbean. Like New York has Africa, and LA's got the Far East. So the squads that go down, they all have they're assigned to cover these. So they have all their shots and all their records and all their passports and stuff. They have a go bag in their car, and they do this a lot. So the first thing you go down is it's their investigation. You probably have a legal attaché that I don't think there's one in Dominican Republic, but there's one that covers that area. He was probably one of the first ones there. He already has local liaisons with the law enforcement. And he's probably set this up for you. So the team comes in, and you have evidence folks, you have, investigators, you have certain people with, expertise that link up with the locals. And they lead it, but you're just kind of pushing to keep getting your way of things. Like you keep like, if you're not getting a chance to talk to witnesses, you keep, pushing it. You go up to the senior guy if you're not getting it, and he's going to go to the chief of police because that's who he's dealing with and say, hey, your guys aren't letting my guys do this. We really need to get this in. But it was already like kind of seasoned a little bit with the embassy folks and with the legal attaché that was there. But that's what the FBI does. They do it all the time. We deal with foreign police officers. We probably have had a Dominican Republic police officer at our National Academy, which is a place where like it's kind of like grad school for cops. There's 4 classes a year of 250 people, and I think 10% of them are foreign police officers. So they go to that FBI school. They live in the barracks with the new agents and stuff. I was a counselor at one, and you're always looking for those guys because they have a lot more knowledge. They have loyalty to the bureau since we put them up and gave them some great classes and stuff. So that's all that's going on in that liaison. And you're trying to get that your best investigator in with him. That's ultimately what you want with this, because that's really where the money's going to be made.
Yeah. Bart, to you, let me go to you on this. I mean, the focus seems to be on this 24-year-old. I don't know anything from anything. My gut is telling me he's probably, we'll find out. But I think there could be other scenarios, is what I'm getting at. But Bart, there also, when this first happened, there was talk about a kidnapping. There's talk about sex trafficking. I think even you mentioned that, or Jeff mentioned that at the beginning. I mean, there was a pretty big gap of time, a few hours, where it appears that, if not more, where he was separated from her. Now they're alone at night. What about the possibility that she's on the beach, Bart, and someone says, come with me, or snatches her? It is a foreign country. She doesn't maybe speak the language. I don't know if she speaks Spanish, but what about these other possibilities?
Yeah, high possibility. I wondered throughout this investigation, the known area where they were, wherever that known area was, just footprints. Now we're talking about a beach. That makes it very, very tough. But was there, I know they said there was no signs of a struggle, but was from where they were any footprints going in a different direction? And it's tough with footprints because we're talking about a beach here, but she would have to have left the beach somehow in order to be abducted if that's the case. But that's just something we still can't take off the table right now. And this guy's been heavily, he's the only person of interest or suspect, however you want to put it, because he's the last person to have seen her. So that's kind of logical. And so we got him, the ocean, and then just guessing. And that's why you see this particular screen. You got dogs checking everything. It's just a lot of unknowns. So as Rob and Jeff have said, getting the proper investigators down there to check everything possible. So I do have a question for Rob and Jeff. Based on these currents and all this, and you've probably seen, like I have, where there have been people who presumably drowned back in January, and it took a number of days before they washed ashore or whatever. And it happened in January. They found them in January, but I don't know if it was 20 days in between, 30 days in between. What is your, if you know, or a particular guess, if she was in the water and sharks didn't eat her, that body may surface?
I think it's possible, but like, again, the ocean can do so many different things. Like if like in January, the tides are going to be one thing. What was the sea state at the time? What was happening? Was there storm offshore? Was there high pressure? Again, I remember doing some combat dives, and you're underwater, and all the vegetation was literally flat on its side. Like it was so strong, and it was because there was a full moon out. And anytime you have like an ebbing or a flooding tide at full moon is that much stronger. And then it just goes away a couple days later because you don't have the same. So the whole thing with the ocean, like I said, we used to call it the big hungry. If it wanted you, it took you. And then sometimes it spits you out and sometimes it doesn't. I think of like, I'd have to kind of look at like all the currents, the charts down there to see, but, and it's tough to search, it's really hard. They got drones up, they got boats and stuff, but it's still really, really tough to find one body in the ocean.
The ocean is so big. Water is big. You look at rivers and lakes and how long it can take to find someone who drowns. The one thing I would say that you can do to try and it takes a lot of work. It will take this is not easy, but I know we did it during the Boston Marathon bombing. You dump cell tel data for all the cell towers in that area, and now you start going through every phone that's pinging. And I go back to it'll take a lot of work, but you do that, and then you can start eliminating like where's the phone hitting, who owns the phone, and if you can say like 90, let's just to make it easy, right? There's 100 phones that you get data on, 90 are hotel guests, and they're all in this location here. Now we can start eliminating that and get down like, oh, here's 10, like his phone at the beach. Is it staying local or has it moved to different cell towers to show he's moving? But we said, like, again, just because you don't want to rule it out, did a group of sex traffickers come over from Haiti because it's one island? They're, country split in half. Did anyone come around? I would say probably no, because the odds are, which hotel are we going to pick? At what point will somebody show up and be alone, right? That's a lot of work to try and kidnap one person to sex traffic. There's a lot there, right? To say, I'm going to sit here every night to hope that finally one night at 4:00, we're going to have a girl by herself that I can snatch off a thing. But we want to make sure we've covered every base. We want to be able to tell the parents we've done everything possible, right? And so you start just looking for that kind of stuff, and you can rule it out, or oh wait, there's this phone we don't know who it belongs to, but I can track that phone back over to Haiti. Now we have a lead. You've got something. So now that's something that could say, let's start following this lead. It's a new lead, right? But those are things that you can do. I mean, for the Boston Marathon bombing, we were about a day away from identifying the Tsarnaev's phones as the ones that triggered the bombs before things went haywire, right? So it can be done. It's just it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time, but it can be done. And again, if I was the parent, that's what I want done, so I can say at the end of the day, we have not left a stone unturned to find out what happened to our daughter. Because at the end of the day, that's what you want. We want to do something that we can give that family peace no matter what. Because if she, God forbid, she wasn't sex trafficked, I mean, horrible, but I would rather be a parent say, hey, at least we know we have closure somehow, because right now there is no closure. And, we know they're not involved, right? Because parents who are involved in something, they'll come back and say she was such a good kid. No, they're saying she's alive. She's a good kid. Those are clues to us that they need something. They really do.
Yeah. COE, please tell V and Z that they're going to be going to college in our living room. So Rob D'Amico, again, this is your world here. So I don't need to tell you guys that Rob is an alpha male of sorts, and he would want to be in charge in a situation like this. So the FBI is now involved, but then they also bring in Interpol, but then they also have the Virginia Attorney General, because she's from Virginia, looking at this, which I don't even understand. And then on top of that, they've got the Loudoun County, the county she's from, their sheriff's office reviewing surveillance video, phone records. I mean, when is enough enough? And for those who don't know what Interpol is, what is Interpol?
Well, one, on a case like this, I would say, like, if the Loudoun County guys are actually looking at surveillance tapes and phone records, great, because you need people to do that. As Jeff said, it takes a lot of work to start going through this stuff. So great. If you get a bunch of chiefs out there, like the Virginia Attorney General going down, please spare me. What are you going to do? Like, I'm not so much in that one. But if it's people actually doing work that's productive, you can't have enough to go through all this. So it's one of those things, but you'll always get people coming into things that for political reasons or for show or for whatever, they want to come down and say they did it or they were there and they helped. I don't buy some of it. It's the same thing with like the New Orleans when they had the senator down there and all these other people, outraged, like, give me a break, shut your mouth, let the investigators, let the people who do this do it, so to speak. But it takes work and it takes people to do it. I think, as Jeff said, like the Boston bombing's a case that really overwhelmed us with how much phone video they got. It actually changed the way the FBI took evidence on those videos. But you have to have someone look at them too. I mean, you can start helping with AI and stuff, but they obviously don't have that down there. But tracking all these cell phones that were around and talking to them and asking everybody what did they see, because it could be always one piece that kind of opens it up. So I welcome all the resources except the ones that are going down to make a show for themselves.
We are looking at photos, obviously, off topic. Joel and I went to the DR on our first trip together as husband and wife. He always says he does not remember going. I sort of vaguely remember we were there like at a weird time of year. There was literally no one there, right? Like nobody. I think we went in like the summer. There was not a single person there. Nice hotel. I kindly, and where COE, wasn't there like a crab in the bathtub or something? Am I right? You got to let me know. All right. Anyway, we're looking at why is this guy talking about himself on his show? He's so narcissistic. Sorry, Bart. I'm hung up on that part. So we're looking at pictures of this kind of search and rescue here. I mean, it's hard enough to do that in Pittsburgh if it was on campus, let alone in a foreign country. How just have with your military experience, when you had to go looking for somebody, how do you coordinate this sort of thing here? If she's in the ocean, she's obviously, they're not finding her, and they're looking on the beach. So like, where do you even know where to look here?
Yeah, from what I've seen, this thing be looking in all the right places. So we saw before with the dogs, they have the dogs out, so that's helping. You got the big old ocean. There were some boats out there. They have helicopters over that, and really, the land, it's pretty tough. I talked about the footprints before because that might be a trail, but you can see the picture there to the right footprints. So that's a very, very tough one. So I think the dogs are doing the right thing, and the area seems to be, I would say, condensed water. And if she was drug off someplace, you see those dogs checking in the bushes and all around. And that's probably as good as it's going to get in terms of checking the area, because the only witness is saying one thing. It's over there, that water. But they appear to be checking as much as they possibly can. But I feel like the area is pretty small.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Jeff Wood. So, I mean, this is heartbreaking because I would do the exact same thing. But the father, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, but it is a lot of letters. He filed a formal complaint asking authorities to stop assuming. He said, please stop assuming that it was a drowning and consider other possibilities. And he gave them the possibilities: kidnapping, human trafficking, foul play. And then he cites his own suspicious details. So he says, her personal belongings, including phone and wallet, were left with friends, and that's unusual because she always carried her phone. That maybe takes us back to the power outage, because someone was saying she couldn't charge her phone. What use is a phone if it's not charged? And then surveillance footage he's talking about showing that this guy Ribe leaves the area alone. So I guess the bigger question is, not only do you have to have empathy for the father, but you do have to dot your I's and cross your T's. So when it comes to kidnapping, human trafficking, or other forms of foul play, how do you make sure that that's not the case? Let's assume for a minute that she, God forbid, she drowned, right? And her body doesn't come up. We don't know that she's drowned. So how do you rule out these other aspects, the kidnapping and the sex trafficking.
Well, if this was a legitimate kidnapping, like I wouldn't say not legitimate, wrong term. If this was a traditional kidnapping, we would have already had the calls made. We need money. Get your daughter back, right? We don't have that. So right away, I'm ruling out a traditional kidnapping, right? Because where are the phone calls? Where's the ransom? There is none. So if there's some kind of foul play here, the foul play would be, was she murdered by this kid? Was there a gang of kids roaming around there that we were able to scoop her up when this kid passed out, who then did something horrible, murdered her? Or was she scooped off the island by a group of kids to sex traffic, right? Sex traffic. And that's, again, where you come in and you start doing that phone stuff. You start doing the logical investigation. Look, here we are. We're kind of acting like the press here, right? We're speculating here, but we're not doing the interviews. We're not going out trying to being the news reporters, talking to people on the ground. The one thing I've always had a problem with while as an agent was the press and how they report things, right? Because the public wants this information. They do. And you go back to World War II, you would wait weeks to months before you got information of things going on. And then we all remember Desert Shield, Desert Storm. We're watching live, basically, when bombs are being dropped in 1991 on CNN on bridges. And I remember the one where there's the luckiest truck driver in the world, where the bomb blows up the bridge and the truck can just cross. So now we as Americans who want instant gratification want answers yesterday. And things come out from investigators, or investigators who should not be talking to the press are giving little bits of information, and they go, we're thinking this is a drowning. Of course the father is going to be devastated, and the father's not going to want to hear that because he wants his daughter alive. And if she's drowned, she's dead. So to him, he wants to go to, it may be the worst case scenario, but she could still be alive and we can still save her. So to me, this is the balance between the press and law enforcement of what you can say and what you can't. And you can go back to every investigation that this started becoming bigger. Boston Marathon bombing, New York, New Orleans, this case, any other case, where things come out and it's wrong, or little bits and things that happen that just, it throws you down the wrong path. It throws people down things. So for here, as an investigator, if I was the case agent, I don't want anyone talking to the press. I'm saying there's no comment. We have an active investigation, and I end it. I'm not
Jeff Wood, you're smart. You're smart, Jeff Wood, because I was in the media, and I always say, I don't understand why anyone talks to us, but they always seem to. I say, and I believe this, that the microphone is one of the more mightier weapons in the world. For some reason, when you stick a microphone in someone's face, they start to talk. I don't know why. So public service announcement, yes, don't do it.
Don't do it. But then we do our logical investigation. And again, you do it all to prove and gather the evidence to show this is what happened. And that goes back to the cell phone. And it's a lot. You dump the cell phone data and you start reviewing it. And you start taking every number. It may not get us to where we want, but if we can say there's 100 phones and not a single phone has anything that starts saying, hey, it's kind of still leading us to path A of a drowning. We talk to this kid until we're done and satisfied that he's telling us the truth. We have everything else. And if it says, this is the last I see her, then that's what we go with. But if he doesn't make sense, then we keep going and we work and getting him to confess to the truth. And it's, again, an investigation is all about the truth, get to the truth, and then go from the truth and do what you have to do, whether it's charge someone, whether it's to prosecute, or whether it's to say, this was an accident, a horrible accident, a young girl who wasn't paying enough attention at the time allowed the booze to get ahead of her, and instead of respecting the big hungry ocean, as Rob calls it, right, the big hungry, I'm drunk, it's dark, we don't know the tides, certain animals are more nocturnal where they eat at that time, who knows, but stay out of the water. You're not a Navy SEAL doing some kind of mission. You're a 20-some-year-old college girl who's had too much to drink. Why are you in the ocean? Go to the hot tub.
Unless you're Jeff Wood, then you can do 20-mile open ocean. I don't even know who would ever do that except for Jeff Wood or a Navy SEAL, but there you go. So 2 final quick questions for Rob D'Amico, and then we'll get some final thoughts. By the way, I see people telling each other that they love him in our chat. This is not even a community anymore. This is one big happy family that is STS Nation, and I'm happy to be a small part of this big family that we now are. Rob D'Amico, Delana was asking, who's relatively new, and I love seeing the new names. She was asking how long to get warrants from, she said Apple, but there is another company, they're Android. So let's say they want to get warrants on this guy's phone to look through them. How long is that process? Question number 1.
Well, one, I'm going to get him to consent. Let me look at your phone. Give me the password, and see what his reaction is. I mean, it's one of those things. If he's like,
how big a red flag if he says no, if he pulls the phone away?
You can't you can't hold that against him to a point, because I don't want anyone looking at my phone. But if I'm accused of murder, I'm like, all right, here, have at it. Like, what do you want to look at, type of thing. He's gonna know what's in there. So I'm going to use that actually as a, again, it doesn't, you really have to open mind. If he says, yeah, absolutely, what do you want to see, type of thing. Or like, I don't know if I should do that. That's a different thing, but an F no might be a little bit different. So the warrant would go through, but again, you're in a foreign country. So, if they seize the phone, or there's a couple ways that you can do that to get back. Jeff, have you worked with
Apple? Will not give us. They won't honor the warrant. You're going to have to break the code.
Yeah,
you'll have to get the warrant, and then you're going to have the FBI will have to break the password.
Yeah, and they have to do that back at Quantico. The folks that are going to break that code are back at Quantico, and they can do it. Apple is against that, but. So you would actually have to get the warrant, and then you'd have to get it back to Quantico, and then the real tech folks are going to break that code, so to speak.
And
down there, probably
not. It won't take long to write a warrant. That's like a 10-page affidavit to get the warrant.
Yeah,
it's breaking the code.
You could probably write the warrant right now with what you have to a point.
Yes.
But you're going to have to get it back to Quantico. So that's the big thing. But I would just ask them, say, hey, look, let me look at your phone. Let me look at your texts. Let me look at your pictures, type of thing. Again, what are you going to look to get out of that? Like, did he text someone like, oh, geez, I got drunk last night and I drowned a girl? Like, did he really send that text? So you kind of have to figure out what would be in there, so to speak. If you thought there was some conspiracy, some people said, well, maybe he was working with someone then they snatched her. I think he was too drunk to do anything coordinated like along those lines. Again, it might have been they both passed out and someone took her. And that's where, as Jeff said, looking at cell phone data, because they probably had phones with them, who else was in that area, and figuring out where those phones went. Because you can start, again, if those phones went back to Haiti, you can start taking a look into certain things if they were there at that time. So all that's going to get kind of crunched in, and that's where you need people to do that investigation.
By the way, Space Coast on the West Coast is a COE's brother, one of the smarter guys I know. I understand the question, but I don't even know how he knows this. Could the FBI ask the UK to help out since they've asked Apple for a backdoor into their encryption? Rob D'Amico, that wouldn't happen. Is that right?
Apple's not giving a backdoor to anyone.
By the way, that Apple has ever done, Joel, is
my mom calls me Joel. It's good, Jeff. Go ahead.
China wanted to track any kind of dissidents in their country, so they made it for Apple to sell their phone in China. They said, Apple, you have to enable us to be able to track IPO type addresses for our phone, for any Apple phone in our country. So if someone goes on their phone and says, "Ooh, I hate the Chinese Communist government," they can track that and find the person who did it. So because they wanted money, Apple is fine to give up certain things to China. But in the United States, after a terrorist attack in San Bernardino, we had a lawful warrant and said, open up the phone so we can find out who they were talking to in case there's more terrorists. And they said no. And then when we actually broke the code, they then try to do a lawsuit against us to find out how we broke the code so they can stop us from doing it in the future. And the Bureau told them to pound sand.
Yeah, well, let me tell you something. It's now come full circle, because if, God forbid, anything ever happened to my 3 kids and I need something from Apple, I'm showing up at Tim Cook's front door with a power washer, and he's giving me that information. And D'Amico is going to be right behind me. D'Amico, one last question. This guy, you were on with this guy, I believe. This was now Natalie Holloway's private investigator, a guy named TJ Ward. And he's quoted as saying completely opposite what you're saying. He said if she had gone into the water, she would have washed up somewhere. Somebody knows something or took her. It's been 4 days. And if she was in the water, again, he says she would have washed ashore. Private investigator, you got Rob D'Amico, military, FBI agent. Your thoughts on those comments?
So I was on News Nation last night with Ashley Banfield, and he was the guest before me. And all he was trying to do was sell his voice stress analyzer and how he could fix this in a second. But it's like, okay, he helped with the Holloway case, and now he's the expert on, American college girls missing in Caribbean islands. It's kind of like, I remember the ASAC that was on the desk, the special assistant special agent in charge that was on the desk for when they got the Unabomber. I forget his name. Like his brother turned him in. That's the only way we got him. Like that dude was good. And then we're looking for Eric Rudolph in a land, outside in the mountains of North Carolina, and they bring him in because he's a serial bombing expert. And I'm like, he sat on a desk when the guy's brother turned him in, and now he's the quote serial bombing expert. And that's what I saw as this PI. Like, come on, like, dude, have you really been in the ocean? I have been in the ocean in unbelievable times, like from the Marines and the FBI, on HRT, the ocean. For him to say that, like, I'm just like, I was shaking my head on the news. Like, you got to be kidding me. This guy does not. And if you look at him, he's not like an ocean going guy. So I just kind of like, he's pushing his product, he's pushing his theory, and, hopefully, again, keeping all avenues. They're looking at everything because, and I'll eat crow if he in fact is correct, but I think there's some other things going on. So I'm not going down his road.
Rob knows, who the investigators are, who can put a case together.
Oh yeah.
And those who are posers, right?
Yeah.
Every agency, whether it's a local PD to the FBI, you've got your top notch. These guys, when an investigation means done, that's who you're calling. You're bringing that person in because he or she is going to kick butt and solve the case and gather the evidence properly and get a successful prosecution. And then you have everyone else who somehow, I was the second, third person from wherever who gets, because they did one interview, they can claim help, or they did the case, right? And that's scary.
There you go. That's a final thought there from Jeff Wood, who not only served in the military, not only swims 20 miles in the open ocean, but he's also a retired FBI. He bringing down bad drug guys and others in the great city of Boston. And absolute pleasure to meet Bart Womack. He was a command sergeant major, now retired. Sounds like a very fancy role, command sergeant major. He's a combat veteran. His awards include 2 Bronze Stars, 1 for valor, and he has a screenplay for the story behind him, Embedded Enemy. Bart, I hope you will come back and join us. Do you think this case, do you think we're going to find out what happened to Sudiksha Konanki? Do you think we're going to find out?
Yeah, I hope we do. It sounds like if she's in the water, that could take some time. I feel sorry, feel for that dad. I know he wants to see. I think the proof is a body, whether it washes the shore. It'll be hard, but at least he knows that he has her. Not alive, at least he has her. Versus doesn't watch up in the next 30 days, 40 days, and that's a totally different story.
Yeah. Blackwood Orr is our friend in the Republic of Ireland. Bart, we are a international family here at STS Nation. Rob D'Amico, great question to, by the way, Ned Smith. I thought I saw her on my flight because there was a woman with a bun and a knitting needle, and I was actually going to go up to her and tell her that I know. And by the way, she was streaming Fox News, which is where I used to work. So it was like a full circle kind of funny moment. I wanted to go up to her and ask her if it was Ned Smith, but I was too scared. Lauren Gurney, Rob D'Amico, again, 39 years in law enforcement and the military. What next steps should be taken? I mean, Rob, let's assume the worst case scenario for 1 second. She goes in the ocean and she was dragged down and the body's not washing up. We might never have an answer. So where do you go from here?
Yeah, unfortunately, that would be the worst, because you just never know at that point. And unfortunately, the parents would like I've met some that like to this day they think their kid may show up. So that's the worst thing. But I think again, you have to do the parallels. You got to keep talking to him. You got to keep doing the search, and then you have to really start looking at what Jeff talked about. Is I think it's small, but the chance that, hey, he wasn't involved, someone else was involved and either took her. And I don't think it's a kidnapping because, again, down there, it's like express kidnapping. They'd asked for $2,000 to be sent over Cash App. They want it to end quick. They don't want to keep the person long. They just want money. And none of that's happened. So then you have to look, okay, let's look at, sex trafficking, human trafficking. So you have to have that side investigation, looking at all the cell phone data, trying to figure out who was out there, where those cell phones are at now, and keep going down that road until you have some answers. If her body comes public at some point where they find it either on land or in the water, then the autopsy is going to go to like, okay, did she drown? But the problem with that is like, okay, did she drown on her own or did he have something to do about drowning? Because someone had put, oh, I think he probably made advances. She turned him down. He got mad and did something to her. I think it would be hard to tell the difference between a normal drowning unless, there's marks on her proving that. But at 6 days at sea, I think you're starting to look at losing evidence on how she drowned if in fact that's what happened. So, you got to do those parallel ones. Hopefully no one gets too focused on one, because if all the cops think she drowned and you just don't put any resources into that long shot, then you're never really going to say, hey, we answered that question and it was negative.
We've got a poll. The COE put this together. What do you think happened to the missing student who has the name Sudiksha Konanki? Accidental drowning, 20%. Some conflict, then she drowned, 15%, unsure, but something seems wrong, 40%. And for some reason, the COE took that down. At some waiting for more information. That's what I was just doing, waiting for more information, which was the poll, 24%. And this is her. This is Sudiksha. Let's hope that she is found safe, alive, and well. But it's got to be complete agony. For the parents. As always, huge thanks to the best guests, better community. We are one big happy family. You've got the COE. You've got Steve Cohen booking guests like Bart and Rob and Jeff. And then you got Space Coast on the West Coast. And, of course, our mods. And then the matriarch of the show, Carm, bringing it all together. Love you, America. Love you, Hollywood, Florida. Love you, Boston, where he is right now. And is it Alabama? Alabama, where you are?
I live in Alabama, but I'm in Boston teaching at BC tonight, or I did already.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Don't get mad at me. I always get Alabama and Arkansas confused, but whatever. They're close enough. And last but not least, from Columbus, Ohio, the Ohio State Buckeyes fan, Bart Womack, now living in Pittsburgh, PA, and hope to see you all back soon. Guests, stick around for 1 minute. See you tomorrow.
Welcome to a live episode of Surviving the Survivor.